This is the Eye for an Eye channel. Welcome to today's show. A good friend of mine sent me a link to this video I'm going to play for you in regards to witch bottles, which are washing up on beaches in Texas. And I'm covering this, and you could probably see if you're new to my channel, I cover Satanism, witchcraft, almost every single day for the most part. I mean, I cover a lot of different topics, but there's always something in the news about the existence of Satanists, the existence of witches, and the fact that we even have debates about is witchcraft real or witches real or Satanists real? They don't claim to really worship the devil, is really what the problem is in today's society, because there's evidence everywhere that tells us that these people who were once, they were once dealt with the old-fashioned way, which was with private justice, that these people still do exist and they still do walk amongst us. Now, this story about witch bottles washing up on shore, of course, is very, very alarming. It's alarming because of the fact that it's actually happening and people are collecting the bottles. And in some of these cases, you can even see, and just listen with the news clip I'm going to put up here, where the guy's like, I don't want to open up the bottle because he's afraid that a spell's going to be cast on him. But in fact, witches do a lot of spells revolving around using bottles, putting things in freezers. These are usually items of actual victims that they've done things to. In one of these cases, you'll hear at the end of the clip, the guy's like, yeah, there's a lot of receipts, and there's even a note saying, I'm sorry for what I've done inside of the bottle. And then he puts it on his back porch. Yeah, it sounds like you might have evidence to a murder going on at your home here. You might have actual evidence to solve a crime. You could end up on true crime here, but it's just sitting on your patio, probably while some family member is trying to find their missing loved one, because of course nobody ever looks to the occult like they used to. No one ever looks to people who practice and delve in black magic and witchcraft or Satanism. Why would they? Because they are told that these people don't exist, and that's why nobody ever looks at these people. And every time they do, they find out that these people have been involved in one of these crimes, and then they get arrested for it. And then of course our government or the governments around the world go out of the way to exonerate these people and let them out of prison, like the West Memphis 3, like the Occult case that I covered. If you don't remember, the Occult case was like a McMartin preschool. That video is available on the website, Uprising Revival. But they were convicted of doing these things, which is not funny. Okay, they were convicted of doing these disgusting satanic rituals with young children. There was nothing more than just, a mountain pile of evidence. They were arrested, and then, of course, they were let out of jail because, it was just all this stuff about Satan and witchcraft isn't real. Don't mind the other evidence involving the children, so we're going to let them out of jail because we're just going to hold up a middle finger and tell everybody out there that we're going to let all people who are involved in witchcraft and Satanism out of prison on means of the fact that it's not real. Witchcraft and Satanism is not real, even though every musician literally does something in their music video that shows you that they worship the devil, whether it's showing pentagrams or there's a lap dancing with Satan himself. Every single movie is about magic, the Magic Kingdom. These are all normal things in our day-to-day life, yet nobody pays attention to it. So here's a clip of these bottles washing up on Texas coasts.
You've heard about a message in a bottle washing ashore, but this is harder to explain. Mysterious bottles plucked from the sea with really strange stuff inside. So what's going on?
Halloween may be over, but the discovery of these mysterious bottles on beaches is giving people the creeps. Look at these. They're known as witch bottles. 8 of them have been found on a beach near Corpus Christi, Texas. So what are these things? The eerie bottles are filled with nails and twigs. Some even contain bodily fluids. Yuck. And if you believe in this sort of stuff, some people say they also contain evil spells that are released when opened.
What I've always heard is do not open them up.
Jace Tunnel found all 8 of the bottles. He says even though he doesn't believe in witches and spells, he's not taking any chances. We spoke with Jace and his wife, Catherine. What should you do if you find one?
I don't bring them inside my house. I take them to the backyard and put them on my fence. What I've always heard is do not open them up, because whatever spirits and whatever they've put in them, it could come out. And so, not that I believe in that stuff, but, why chance it?
So, where did they come from? The bottles are thought to have drifted all the way from the Caribbean and South America.
This one is actually from Cuba. It's a bunch of receipts that's put in there with a note, kind of asking for forgiveness. And then they throw it into the ocean, I guess, to forgive their sins or something.
Now, this may all just be hocus pocus, but if you ever find a witch bottle along the beach, perhaps it's safer just not to open it.
So the beaches in Texas are being filled with these things. Apparently this one guy is the guy collecting all the bottles. Now, this is not something that is out of the realm. If you actually look into witchcraft and Satanism, they do spells and rituals involving freezer spells, involving bottle spells, where they put the hair or they put something essential from that person that they're putting a spell on inside of these bottles, and then they'll either put them in their own freezer, they'll send them out to sea. I think what they do is they might cast a spell, and then when the spell goes through or something happens to the person, they might actually put these in a bottle and send them out in the ocean. But let me read the story about what's happening on these Texas shores. A Texas researcher said witch bottles of unknown origin have been washing up on beaches along the state's coastal bend. Jace Tunnel, director of community engagement at Hart Research Institute for Gulf of Mexico Studies, has found hundreds of unique and unusual items while combing Texas beaches this month. And the latest discovery is witch bottles. Witch bottles date back to the 16th and 17th centuries, when people who believed themselves to be targeted by curses or spells would fill a bottle with objects including iron nails, fingernail clippings, and human hair in an attempt to rid themselves of the dark magic. Now, what's scary is we look at our society today, right? I mean, obviously we live amongst narcissists, and we really live amongst psychopaths, right? We look at all these people out there and how stupid they are and how they act and how they talk. But scary is they actually think that they're smart, right? We're empowering really dumb people who are just regurgitating the communist propaganda being fed to them on the television set. But when we hear a story like this and they go, oh, but back in the 16th and 17th century, that people were actually doing this, they would laugh and be like, wow, people back then were crazy. And they were doing what? They believed themselves to be targeted by curses and spells. Wow, those people were really... Meanwhile, those are the type of people who are completely self-sufficient, could take care of themselves, could feed, figured out how to find food. They weren't depending on the government to eat and do all these other things. And they believed that this stuff was real because it is real. Okay? It is real. Say that word a couple times fast and you'll find out who's behind a lot of the magic too. It is real. It is real. It is real. What does it sound like I'm saying? Something with bagels. Yeah, they're behind a lot of this stuff. Their books teach a lot about black magic, huh? And those little red bracelets they like to wear and tell you that it's cool and it's about spirituality and individualism and empowerment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they love practicing black magic, and they've normalized black magic. They've normalized all sorts of dark magics in front of us on a day-to-day basis. So when we look at that and we hear about what used to occur back in the 16th and 17th century, it's frightening to know that people in today's society looking, they go, wow, back in the Stone Ages, these people were really nuts. Meanwhile, people in today's society are talking about men giving birth. They're talking about being born in the wrong body. So, it just goes to show you the difference in time periods where we actually, people believe that stuff was real and they don't realize now that they're actually under a psychosis and under a spell because these people are spell casting on them, and they're thinking that men are going to give babies out of their penis. Or, of course, whatever other completely insane notion that they're normalizing that these people actually believe. So they say we found about 8 of them over the past 6 or so years, and they have sticks and leaves in them, different types of vegetation. Some of them have gooseneck barnacles growing on them, so we know they've been out in the Gulf of Mexico for a while. Apparently, they're supposed to have spells in them. Tunnell said he has no interest in opening the bottles. As you saw, his wife wouldn't even allow them inside the house. The theory is that if you open up the bottle, the spell will come out, whatever the reason the person had put the spell in there. I actually believe differently. I've seen stuff before, and obviously I'm not well versed in like spells and spell casting. Well, I understand and know the occult from reading a lot of these books on secret societies, the Illuminati, et cetera, and realizing who they worship and the teachings of Aleister Crowley. I'm not deep into like researching and studying voodoo and things like that, where you learn the actual spell, because I have no interest in knowing the actual spell and things like that. But I would believe from some of the stuff that I have, loosely read on witchcraft and voodoo, is that they actually put these things inside of a container, and a lot of the times they put it in a freezer or something like that. They cast these spells. Now, these to me are like evidence bottles, right? That somebody cast a spell on somebody and they threw it out to sea, and obviously, get rid of any evidence. Like, why would there be receipts inside of a bottle? Okay, and then a note, like the guy said, about apologizing. But of course, this type of stuff would never ever be investigated anyway, because they would go, oh, that's just some type of crazy stuff, right? I don't know what that guy's talking about. I don't know what's in that bottle. That's weird. Because again, in our culture, you're taught that witchcraft and Satanism is not real. But all signs around us show us that it is real, right? If you're a Christian, you should know it's real because the Bible talks constantly about witches, right? About even allowing witches to live. What do you think God was so against witches for? What do you think God was so against these certain people who really enjoy the Hershey Highway? What do you think God was so angry and against them for? Because it was just something that was embarrassing? Well, yeah, it is embarrassing, no doubt about it. But it's wicked. The core of these things are wicked, right? People don't realize that with that Gomorrah. How wicked the people were, the disgusting things, the perversion just didn't stop with, the Hershey Highway. The perversion went deeper than that. There was perversion with children we read about in that book, which I just put a video up of it on the End of the Beginning channel, reading from it. So if you don't know about it, you can go over to that channel and read about it, or listen to me reading you direct scripture. But, they were interested in doing things with angels as well. I mean, just really sick stuff. So God was not for the Hershey Highway, and he certainly was not for witches either, or Satanists. And it wasn't because he didn't like the way that they dressed or they looked. It was because of the things that they did and the things that they were, they believed in. This, again, goes back to Baal worship, right? So we're taught that they don't exist. The Bible tells us that they do. And then all the evidence around us shows us that these people are everywhere. They're spell casting, all the main things in our pop culture that are popular from Harry Potter. They're all about witchcraft. And everyone's just like, they won't accept it. They're so desensitized. They're like, oh, come on, man, you're crazy. Harry Potter, witchcraft. Right, and then you let your kid watch it. Your kid wants to dabble and, wants to get a wand. You're like, what? It's innocent. He's got a wand. And then, like I covered a couple years ago, they have the Harry Potter wand that literally reads spells out loud. And they're like, oh, it's just good, clean fun, right? Then the kid turns 13 and he's like, oh, I want to do more. I play Dungeons and Dragons. He plays Dungeons and Dragons. Then from Dungeons and Dragons, he wants to get into actual spell casting and going to, his local Freemason lodge or wherever they're casting spells in town, which is all over the place. Then he moves on and goes on and on and on and just escalates. Just like people who become drug addicts, right? They don't start out most of the time on heroin. They start out a little bit lower. I believe that's how it goes. Or someone who drinks, they don't start out, drinking a bottle of whiskey. They probably start out maybe even having a couple drinks. And it just escalates, right? It's the same thing. It's a gateway. We're in a society where everything is a gateway to the occult. Everywhere you look, everything. And people go, yeah, witches and Satanists don't actually exist. Here's more evidence of the existence. Of course, people out there will just roll their eyes and say that it's stupid. And we'll continue to go on not realizing that the problems in the world and the chaos in the world all stem from these people. Okay? The fact that they've normalized child sacrifice like they have by telling people it's their body, their choice, is utter insanity that we don't connect the dots here of what's going on with Baal worship. But they don't, because they've created a society of narcissists. So they can't see the actual truth. They're blinded by so many earthly, worldly things. And of course, they're blinded by themselves, right? They think that these empowerment things are about them and people trying to take their rights away. And it's almost like they don't even care. They don't even want to go to Planned Parenthood, but they almost are told to go do it because it makes them fit in more, it makes them more empowered. And they do. They don't even know what they're doing. The majority of our society doesn't know what they're doing. So again, witches aren't real. Bottles popping up on shore with spells in them, confession notes, hair lockets and bottles, pretty much evidence, right? And of course, even if there was evidence and something linked back to Satanism, they would never tell you about it because they never want to make these things public. And when they do, like that guy that recently got arrested for these two girls on a hike trail, I covered it over on the website. He came out and said that there was some type of satanic ritual that occurred. And of course, the media just immediately, because they have to cover it when he says that on a very publicized trial, they just dismiss it and act like it's all crazy. Now, I'm not saying that his defense is crazy or not crazy because I don't really know the evidence that was there because they don't show you much of the evidence so that you can make your own, have your own, idea of what actually occurred. But we know whenever that narrative comes out, they just start laughing it off, dismissing it off, saying, oh, this guy's just trying to get away with it. It's crazy. He's got a crazy idea of what really occurred, and nobody will ever believe it. So it continues to, in people's minds, make them think that Satanism and witchcraft aren't real when there's tons of evidence around all of these murders that are very well-known murders, that there's occult connections to it. I mean, all one has to do is look at the John Wayne Gacy one and his house and how it was kind of just used by people who were involved in these satanic rings, including Gacy, right? He didn't do all, there's a lot of evidence that shows that he didn't do everything that was underneath that house, and that his house was literally an open door for these people, just like when you go down the highway, right? And there's signs on the highway for Freemason lodges, okay? So all the Freemasons in every town know where they can go to a lodge. What is that about? Oh, well, it's about them networking with each other, and they know where they can go if they want to do some type of ritual, etc. But people are just like, oh, it's just there so they can go have a beer, right? And our tax money funds the signs that go up in every highway. Well, the same thing with a lot of these rings. They know in each town that they're in where they can go, where they can actually buy and sell and do this stuff. And obviously with the thing in Washington with the pizza, you know, we all learned back then, right? With the signs and symbols that were on all the for businesses, because that's how they communicate, with signs and symbols. So you could see the symbol on one of the businesses, you know, they can go into that business and they could ask to speak to the owner of the business, and then they know where they can go and they can network that way. So it's frightening. These people are all around us. It is frightening. It's frightening that we're allowing them to exist in our society, that we're allowing them to do these things and get away with it. But we've all been, you know, our parents, our grandparents, they've allowed them to set this country up this way, the same country they're sabotaging now, so that these people could run free, and the laws and rules have been set up to protect them and not us, of course. And, well, it's just utter insanity. Witches are real. Satanism is real. This is just more proof. But, of course, it'll just be ignored and laughed off, as always. But I'm here to tell you about it. And thank my friend for sending that to me. And thank everybody out there. Hope more of you will consider joining the website, uprisingrevival.com. If you haven't, there's a lot of great content over there, including some of the shenanigans going on over in the land of bagels. I mean, it's probably one of the more funny things I've covered in recent memory. Maybe the funniest, when they're releasing hostages and they're all hugging and laughing. I mean, you can't make it up how ridiculous these scripts are getting. I thought when we saw The Hook, you know, that school up in the Sandyville, I thought then we probably would never see anything with the acting and et cetera, crisis events, people. I can't say the word because of the algorithm. I thought we would never see anything like that. Parkland was pretty unreal. This one is just, this is epic. Epic comedy. So it's over on the website, uprisingrevival.com, because you can't speak truth here too much on YouTube, especially about things like that. So that would be an Insta strike, probably an instant deletion of the channel, which, you know, doesn't surprise anybody anyway. So I hope to see more people over there. A reminder, too, if you haven't subbed to my backup channel, Unite Uprising, I uploaded my YouTube video over there that a lot of people wanted to see. I have a lot of new content over on that channel, too. So if you like my content, I highly recommend you join, because if any one of these videos gets a strike, I'm gone for 2 weeks. There'll be a lot of important stuff with the holidays coming up, etc. Nimrod, all sorts of things I'll be covering. And also, a call for vengeance has been approved for anybody out there that's still listening. Please make sure you're subbed to that channel as well. We're going to get both those channels up and running. And if you ever want to catch me in a live stream, not, you know, the premieres, a live stream where I actually talk and interact with the audience, I recommend joining those channels, because it would be over there, not here. I thank you guys for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always, and your families.